The queen wasted no time, grabbing Lin Tian's hand and shoving it right between her massive, soft curves. She acted like it was the most natural thing in the world, but honestly, anyone watching would probably be too busy admiring the garden to notice. Flowers blooming everywhere, perfect cover for her little stunt. Lin Tian, though, stayed locked in his disguise as Dennis, trying to wrap his head around just how damn serious this woman seemed about dragging him into some workouts. While she flirted with him, his hand stuck in what most dudes would call heaven, Lin Tian's mind spun in circles. Is this for real? Is she actually serious, or is this some set-up bullshit? He kept his expression cool, refusing to melt into her teasing. Deep down, he knew this was way too forward. They had literally just met. Acting reckless with someone like her could bring down a shitstorm later. So he told her straight, unless she made it clear she wasn't planning some sneaky crap, he wasn't about to just dive in. If he screwed up here, the consequences would be ugly. But the queen? She just smiled, cool as ever. Her answer was basically, "Boy, even if you wanted to act reckless, you can't. I'm the queen. I call the shots." What she didn't know was who Dennis really was, or what kind of monster Lin Tian could unleash if he dropped the disguise. But for now, he kept it under wraps. Then Queen Dale laid it all out. She didn't care about games, didn't care about consequences. The king was on his last breaths in the Darwin kingdom, and she was about to take the throne herself. Her plan? Find a hot, strong guy to stand by her side, and to her, Dennis ticked all the boxes. Muscles, good looks, and if her sister's gossip was true, some serious firepower where it counted. She even laughed about her husband's downfall, how the old bastard had burned out his stamina long before his years, wasting himself with non-stop fooling around and zero discipline. No training, no self-control, and now, nothing left in the tank. To her, it was just proof. She wasn't looking for romance, she wanted fun. And then came the kicker. If Lin Tian wanted access to Darwin's top-tier forging gear and a shot at leveling himself up, he had to play along with her little game. In the end, Lin Tian gave in. The system chimed immediately, flooding his stats, plus 240 health, plus 100 power, plus 102 defense. Not bad for a night that started with one hell of a weird proposition. Lien was still going at it, pushing through while the queen seemed to be enjoying every damn second of it. Between heavy breaths, he threw in a cheeky question, asking if now, after she'd been satisfied over and over, she was finally down to teach him the art of forging equipment. Before she could answer, though, the door suddenly burst open. A soldier rushed straight into the queen's chambers without even knocking, face pale and breath ragged. He blurted out that the king's condition had worsened, that it looked like the old man had finally passed away. But halfway through his words, the poor bastard froze. His eyes went wide, face turning beet red when he realized exactly what he'd just walked into. He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole, but he wasn't stupid. He knew his place and wasn't about to ask the queen what in hell was happening right in front of him. All he could do was stay kneeling, stammering for her to come see the king immediately. Queen Dale rose slowly, her thin, see-through gown catching the light as she stretched, a devilish grin pulling at her lips. To her, it felt like the gods had handed her a double prize on a silver platter. 2 back-to-back blessings in one day. Meanwhile, Lien was already pulling his clothes back on, muttering that he'd head back to the guild and check in on her later. But the queen had other plans. She stopped him cold, telling him straight up that he wasn't going anywhere. This palace was his home now, and whether he liked it or not, he'd be her new king. That left Lien staring at her like she just lost her damn mind. King? Him? He still had a ton of shit to take care of. This wasn't part of his plan. But before he could argue, the whole scene shifted to the king's chambers. Attendants swarmed the room, rushing about like ants, while the queen swept in behind them. The king lay sprawled on the bed, nothing but a frail, withered shell of a man. It didn't take Lien more than a second to figure it out. The old dude had been dead a while, probably propped up like a sad puppet just to keep up appearances. The moment Lien's eyes narrowed, Queen Dale caught it. She smirked and told him not to look at her like that unless he wanted her to crank things up and make them even more interesting. Then she started spilling the backstory. Turns out, she wasn't even the king's first wife. He'd basically dragged her into marriage 10 years back, when he was already half crippled and couldn't even stand on his own legs. His death wasn't exactly a shock, it had been coming for years. And that, she explained with a twisted kind of satisfaction, was exactly why she'd been so desperate to find someone strong enough to wear the crown beside her. The queen didn't waste any time. She told Lien straight up that he had to handle the coronation ceremony in the next couple of days. Until then, the boy could just wander around the palace and do whatever the hell he wanted. Lien gave her a formal yes, but Queen Dale shut him down right away. She hushed him, smiling all soft, and said he didn't have to call her queen anymore. She wanted him to call her darling, and she said it with this weird mix of affection and command. Lien, grinding his teeth inside but playing along on the outside, reluctantly went with it. For the sake of the treasure he was after, he gave in and called her darling. Fast forward a couple of days, and Lien was now standing in front of the gigantic treasury door. His face carried this stubborn determination, the result of 2 straight days of the queen's push-and-pull game. She tried every trick, soft and hard persuasion, day and night. But in the end, Lien's endless patience, sleepless nights, and fake smiles finally got him what he wanted, the key to the vault where the dwarves' legendary magic tools were supposed to be stored. The dwarves hadn't forged anything new in decades, sure, but they were no idiots. They had to have some backup stash for emergencies, right? At least, that's what the queen had told him. Now, in front of the lock, Lien followed her instructions. 2.5 turns left, 2.5 turns right, then another 2 turns left. Before the treasury could be fully unlocked, Lien had been forced to go through some strange old rituals, singing a couple of folk songs, moving through half-forgotten dances. It all felt more like some festival performance than a serious trial, but it had to be done. At last, the final note faded and the heavy door gave a slow response. A crimson eye appeared in the middle of the gate, unblinking, watching, and then the massive stone slabs began to part with a long, aching creak. The moment the opening was wide enough, Lien, still disguised as Dennis, stepped forward and froze. His face went stiff, his eyes wide with disbelief. The treasury was empty. Not just stripped, but hollow, as though wealth had been drained from it years ago. It hit him then, the previous king, lazy and spoiled, must have squandered the kingdom's legacy. The man had probably lived in comfort by selling off the dwarves' enchanted relics, feeding his whims while his people enjoyed the easy prosperity that came from equipment worth more than gold. As the thought sank in, Lien drifted deeper into the chamber, scanning every corner. That was when he caught sight of something tucked away at the back, a lone storage chest, dusty and forgotten. Inside it lay a collection of dwarven gear, worn but still radiating weight and presence. One piece in particular caught his eye, an old, pale green armor, faintly dulled with dust. When Lien's system scanned it, the name, Life Armor, appeared, along with its unsettling ability. The armor endured not by its own strength but by drinking its wearer's blood, feeding off the host to empower its defenses. It wasn't just protective, it had an awareness of its own, able to sense danger and react faster than any human reflex. Next came the blade. A dark, jagged weapon whose very shape carried menace. The system called it the Cursed Blade, crafted from the spine of a demon dragon. Its power deepened with obsession. The more consumed the wielder became, the more savage the blade's strength grew. Dangerous, intoxicating, the kind of weapon that would never rest easy in someone's hand. And finally, a pendant. An odd piece, holding the eye of a dark spawn, creatures with origins unknown, beings whose bodies dwarves harvested after their deaths. The eye held a sharp, all-seeing clarity, capable of piercing through illusions and lies. Yet with that gift came risk. It carried a will of its own, a tendency to bend its bearer under its influence if they weren't careful. Standing before the relics, Lien let out a slow breath. This wasn't ordinary forging. These weren't just weapons or armor. What the dwarves had left behind looked closer to living creations, infused with will, hunger, even awareness. It wasn't smithing anymore. It was something dangerously close to life itself. Lien couldn't help but wonder what the strange armor would do once it finally tasted blood. To test it, he bit down on his finger and let a few drops spill over the blackened metal. The reaction was immediate, violent, almost as if the armor had lashed out to attack him. But the truth was stranger. Instead of being harmed, Lin felt the armor pulling into him, merging with his body, and with every second that passed, his strength climbed higher. The process wasn't quick, but steady, almost rhythmic. The armor was being absorbed into him, and through that connection, Lien began to understand its nature. It wasn't just one form, it carried three. The first was sleek and humanoid, sharp in outline, like a second skin made for speed. The second form grew bulkier, muscle-like plating piling over itself. And then came the third, the heaviest, most impenetrable shape, a fortress of metal that demanded the most blood to maintain. When he released it, the armor didn't simply fall away. It flowed into a pendant at his chest, the surface glowing with a soft green light that fit perfectly with the goblin leader's aura. The pendant resembled a crystal, oddly beautiful, and Lien rolled it in his hand, eyes narrowing in thought. Just how much punishment could this thing really take? How strong was its defense when pushed to the limit? That question lingered as he turned to the next treasure, the demon blade. The moment his fingers curled around its hilt, an oppressive weight sank into him. He hadn't even lifted it, yet the sheer presence of the sword pressed down hard, suffocating in its power. Lien quickly made his choice. He wouldn't use this weapon himself. Instead, he would hand it to Alice once he returned to the goblin army. The sword suited her better. It struck him as a shame, though. Out of all the stockpiled magic tools in the dwarves' vault, only 3 stood out like this. The rest were nothing but scraps. The dwarves, who had grown lazy under comfort, would need to start the forge again, this time under his command. If he could push them into producing at least 20 decent items a day, the quota could be filled in about 2 months. That meant one thing: he'd have to stay here a while longer. Not that it was entirely a burden. The Dwarvian kingdom was his now, and life as its king had its comforts. He had a queen who made sure he was cared for, day and night, and the throne came with luxuries even he hadn't expected. For now, he could rule, prepare, and enjoy the spoils of power while his plans moved forward.